Hello, welcome everyone to today's podcast, The Engineer Whisperer Transitions. And today I have my friend here with me, and we're going to have a really fun conversation. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea, very much. Yeah, I'm really pleased to be here.
As we start, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm an engineer by background. I worked in government before. I was a senior leader, program leader, sort of director with leading, as you would say, a sort of a team of leaders. Previous to that, I work in operations, and I've sort of trained and developed individuals and teams in probably the most harshest environment, undersea environment in the world. And that's been a huge privilege to see how they've developed. But since then, I've sort of transitioned to a sort of mountain training area, which has been my passion. I chair an organization that particularly works with young people from all backgrounds and additional needs in the outdoors. So we're sort of now developing the leaders of the future, and it's great to see some of the parallels between those various environments.
So let's get going. Let's start with how did you choose to transition into taking people up to the mountain?
So it's always been that's always been my passion, mountaineering, or sort of I suppose a sort of therapy from actually being at sea quite a lot. So I have my feet on sort of dry land, occasionally enjoy the sort of the outdoors and the fresh air. But for the last 12 years, I've run a local organisation which is really sort of taken the opportunity to get young people into the outdoors, provided sort of expedition or supported them on expeditions, and the point there for us is it's very much their own thing. So we sort of provide the environment for them to thrive, learn, be successful, be challenged, work together as a team. Since I left full-time employment, then as apart from sort of some consultancy, this has sort of increasingly become my voluntary day job, and I absolutely love it. You know, it's just great to sort of see people thrive and do things that they never thought they could do, work really well as a team, bringing together different skill sets, different backgrounds, and even some people who've got very few formal educational qualifications get something out of it which will really sort of could be life changing and set themselves up for the future, using sort of the outdoors. UK mountains, not quite as grand as the ones out in the States, but just as challenging and wet, but to as an environment to sort of it's quite a leveling environment to get young people to explore things that they wouldn't otherwise do and have that opportunity.
David, I'm curious, did someone accompany you when you were a young adult and take you?
No, well, yes, they did actually. We had a very good teacher when I was at school who took us out. So there is something in the UK called the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme, now headed up by the current Duke of Edinburgh, and it's a sort of young people's development scheme which incorporates an expedition. We had a teacher that ran it when I was at school. It was sort of a mask for a school expedition mountaineering club. And we used to go away in the holidays, and she, I suppose, was quite instrumental because she used to challenge them very much, within limits, let us do what we wanted to do, and that developed into, I think, a lifetime of exploration, and they're now encouraging young people to be able to explore themselves, but providing that safe, supportive environment for them to do it, and but very much making it theirs. So they lead. We just enable, support, and make sure they don't come to any real harm.
So I'm curious, what is the mindset shift that you kind of switch into once you are out of the town or city and now you're up in nature and in the mountain yourself before you even lead others around you?
I think it's very much you can't control. You're working in an area which is like millions of years old, and you're very much a small part of that, and I think that's quite sort of quite humbling. And the sort of the parallels of leading teams elsewhere is that you sort of can't control everything. You can sort of manage the risk, and you can set the conditions, but you can't control the weather here, particularly. But what you can do is to sort of adapt to it. And I think the sort of the mindset shift is around to sort of adapting rather than trying to control everything. And if I go back to my time in leading teams and even working in the sort of the operational area, it was very much went through that sort of flip between trying to sort of controlling everything at a relatively low level to, as you sort of work your way up through the organization and end up sort of running sort of fairly large teams, is actually you can't control everything, and you shouldn't. So there's a real mindset shift to sort of setting the conditions for others to thrive, and enabling them to do it and them to own it, and you're supporting, very critical supporting thing, and drawing the sort of those boundaries and ensuring that sort of we stay within those, but actually within that appreciating that there are different paths. And similarly in the hills and mountains, you might want to get to the top of somewhere, but there's lots of different ways of doing it. So, and none of those are particularly right or wrong. So, let it flow a bit more, and give yourself and give people the sort of ability to adapt to sort of way things are changing, and take some ownership of it.
Mhm. Well, tell us a little bit more. How did you adopt to and create an environment for others to thrive um, in when you were working with teams, and then how similar it is how you're doing it now
Yeah, I
with.
think, yeah, I think it's sort of getting you very much understand. It comes back to down to sort of very much understand your people, what they can do, what their interests are, what makes them tick, rather than necessarily just the sort of focusing on the task, the outcome. It's actually, if you get the people working properly, then sort of the outcomes will happen. And putting teams together and encouraging that sort of collaboration networks, particularly between different skill sets. And so often you see organizations working in quite narrow hierarchies, where you might have a commercial department, you might have this, and actually, if you could sort of get them working much more horizontally and collaborating, you sort of join it. I call it join the dots, really, because that's what you want to do is join the dots and encourage good practice to sort of float up from the bottom. And then the other thing for me is, get your people to own things from the outset. So the stuff that we do with the young people in the mountains is they plan everything, and then they sort of execute and adapt their plan. We don't plan it for them. It's very much theirs. You decided to go up there. We thought, a fairly silly idea, but off you go, and we'll see what happens. So they actually own it, and then people feel a lot more sort of engagement, agency, and something that they own and they're enthusiastic about and they plan, rather than something that's sort of been given to them on the plate, because they invested in it, they've worked hard on it. And I often sort of find, and used to find, particularly with sort of with teams, is set the boundaries at the start. Don't have much less checking at the end. So we might have a sort of business proposal that's come through, and you're conditioned to sort of, it comes up to you for approval. Well, what do you do at that point, apart from checking for spelling mistakes? You sort of, you're up against it. You need it to deliver.
Yep.
It's much better to be able to set the conditions for that at the beginning. And so, and the only question then you need to ask at the end is, are you still within those boundaries that we set at the beginning? Yeah, fine, crack on. And much easier to flow
Yeah.
through rather than control things right at the end.
Yeah, trust them that they
Just
are
yeah, yeah.
following those
But,
boundaries.
um,
Um, as you were talking, something popped into my head that I want to check in with you based on your
hmm,
experience. Based on my experience, that when I would give ownership and agencies to someone like you're saying, that plan your trip, take ownership, accountability, is when the person when things don't go according to plan, they pivot easier, they change and they shift easier because they do have ownership, versus if I would have made the plan and then tell them to change, then I would have gotten resistance. Is that your experience as well?
yeah, absolutely. And when things inevitably do change, and the original plan might not survive
Yeah.
contact, but get them to come up with a new plan.
Yes.
So in the mountains, what we would do, even a group of sort of 14, 15, 16 year olds, the weather might have changed. We might have a thunderstorm warning. We have a lot of those in the UK. We might have a sort of uh, extreme heat, to be example. Actually, well, doing what they originally planned to do is not such a good idea. Well, come up with a new plan then. Don't say, oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. There's a time and place for that when, particularly in sort of emergency safety type scenarios where you perhaps do have to sort of step in, but they should be the sort of probably the exception rather than the rule. And we find that people learn far more by doing it themselves, and sometimes making the mistakes. But the alternative to that is that you as a leader everywhere, and you're not doing your job. You're not looking outwards. You're looking inwards all the time. You're not looking outwards at the conditions, the external stakeholders, the environment that children work for, and particularly as a sort of a non-executive director, your role is not there to do the executives' jobs for them. That's what they're to do. You're very much to sort of challenge at times, to support, to create that environment for success, to sort of work with external stakeholders. In our case, we work with a lot of the local authorities and councils, national park organisations, etc. And to do that, say, actually, we want to go there. Can we go there? Yeah, fine.
Tell me,
And there.
David, tell me more about this failure. So how how does that manifest show up in that environment that you're talking about, where it's already a kind of an unknown environment, and
Yeah,
then you come in with the plan, and yeah, the plan doesn't quite match, as you said, the weather, the terrain,
yeah,
the expectations, and the plan has to shift. But it might have been because, yeah, someone made a mistake. So
yeah.
how does that is dealt with in the environment?
I think I come originally from quite a harsh operational environment where there's a very strong learning culture and fessing up to mistakes, and not a priority on learning rather than attributing blame. So every mistake, every crisis is an opportunity. Okay, well, right, well, this is where we are. I think, as a leader, what you're always doing is you've always got some sort of dynamic risk management going on in your head. So you're sort of trying to stay one step ahead in terms of what if. My mind is a massive what if machine, and I think, well, yeah, it could go wrong there, or it could do this. So you're sort of ahead of it.
So you
Uh,
see the mistakes,
yeah,
almost like
you
you
see
see
it.
that they're
Yeah,
gonna
you see it,
use.
and actually, that's quite interesting because you can sort of decide whether to intervene or not, and recognizing that there's a positive and negative to that. If you intervene too quickly, then people say, okay, well, it's not mine anymore. You guys, you've got it now. I'm just going to go with it. Whereas if you sort of let it go sometimes, and you can sort of say, okay, well, yeah, we can see you making that mistake, but then okay, we've watched you recognise it, we've watched you correct it, we've watched you, yeah, fine. What did you learn? And then the next question is, what did you learn from it? What would you do different next time? Which is a much more positive view from, it's much more positive perspective than jumping in and say, oh yeah, you made a mistake, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And you just completely blown it then. You've got the problem, not, they're not sort of developing that. You're sort
Yeah.
of
Almost
sort of
like you become the problem because
you
of
become,
your
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
attitude. You
Yeah, yeah.
as
And
a
we're quite good, the hills, particularly with youngsters, we tend to use GPS trackers. So you could like sit there and watch them. Okay, they're going there. Fine, we'll see what happens. As long as they're not going to sort of fall off a cliff or you jump in a river or whatever, then you can give them a fair amount of latitude. Because as I said, you're getting to the end goal, there might be an infinite number of ways to get there, none of which are necessarily right or wrong, and some might take a bit longer. But
yes.
think of the sort of the value you're going to get along the way if there's quite a lot of learning there as well, and how much better that would make them, your team, your organization in the future at tackling sort of and yet tackling similar challenges in the future, but also having an adaptability to sort of tackle things which you don't know about the future. So because they've learned to learn or they've learned to adapt. And so a lot of what I've done in the past, be it sort of leading teams or teams training or similar to what I do in the mountains now, is really about providing environment for people to develop so they can then do similar things independently without any oversight. And therefore, so what you're trying to do is make yourself dispensable. Um, and the best sort of reward you get from that is seeing that group of people go off and do their own things or become leaders, further leaders within the team and really grow. I'm a great believer in sort of the reward you get is success of others, not necessarily success of yourself. You can take some credit for it. So feel good about it.
Yes. I love it. The other side of making yourself not useful here anymore is that you have raised everybody else around you to your
Yeah.
level or above you so
Above, yeah,
that
even better, yeah. And I've
yes.
now been overtaken by several of my my deputies. So yeah, great.
Yeah, and that just feels great.
Yeah,
I
it's
had
brilliant.
that experience too because uh the larger view is there are always others we can grow and grow and elevate. So
Yeah,
um the feeling of, oh, now I don't have anything to do, um is actually the opposite. Now let's move on to the next group of
yeah,
people
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and continue there and then take what you have learned.
yeah,
um I'm curious about something as you're talking, David, is do you get this comment from the young adults that you're taking up the mountain after they completed an expedition of, wow, I discovered that I'm capable of so much more.
yeah.
So this discovery of,
Exactly, and that translates into other things that they do. It's not just I've walked up that mountain, so I can walk up that mountain again, sort of thing. It's sort of for us, it's more about sort of broader confidence and teamwork and just having the confidence that you can do something that you didn't think you could do, and I mean, it's not quite so scary, or the opposite. You might say, okay, well, I sort of managed to survive that horrendous thing. So every time something really difficult comes up, I'll remember that, and it can't be that bad, sort of thing.
yeah.
We've had a few like that. But yeah, so we've got some young people who've left school at a really early age. In some cases, they're sort of what you could term additional needs, autism, etc. And we're hoping, aiming for them to come out with a nationally recognised award, which only maybe 10% of young people in this country would achieve. So they all have gone from, so the mindset there is they've gone from the bottom 10% to the top 10%. Okay, well, what can you do next?
Wow.
You get a job. So there's sort of, potentially life-changing sort of opportunities, particularly from for the more sort of disadvantaged people in our communities, which generally disadvantaged by either circumstances, or they don't fit, the system doesn't work for them, or whatever. So
Yes.
that is incredibly rewarding, because they've all got some skills, and if you look at it from a positive perspective, then there's and they are the ones that probably get the most out of it, and are most rewarding for us.
So it almost seems like a transition even for them,
Yeah,
transition
absolutely.
point in
Yeah,
their lives that this is leading them into.
yeah, and it works hand in hand to some extent with sort of just growing up and maturing, and those, if you can get those two to interact positively, um, that's sort of really powerful, I think. In the same way as we might have other people, adults, older people who are transitioning between different stages of life, and if there's a way of introducing a sort of a positive element to that, then you get onto a sort of positive spiral, and sort of refer back to sort of a systems background or system thinking background. Of there's no easy fixes to any of these things, but actually let's just start moving in a positive direction, understand some of the interrelationships, and but set it on a sort of positive spiral, rather than expecting a single easy answer.
Yes.
Well, that was a little bit rambling, but it's sort of
Well, well,
mm,
David, one of the things that I admire about what you're doing and the mindset that you're doing it with, that you're building on your experience as a leader of leaders,
mm,
that um, we sometimes undervalue the importance of having one leader, one person in our lives with this positive
yeah,
attitude, this positive support. And we think overgeneralize that everybody's getting that everybody has at least one person in their lives who
yeah, that would be
is
nice.
their cheerleader. But
Yeah,
one thing that is amazing about what you're doing, and since I met you, is that you think that I can be that one person, that
yeah,
one
yeah,
supporter to someone, and then you come with this mindset of, yeah, I will be that person, so that you experience it, and
yeah,
then that experience then translates into confidence, translates into resilience in others, risk taking, calculated risk taking. But
yeah,
just for someone to say, yeah, I met someone like David, who
yeah.
believed in me, who listened to me, who guided me, who didn't judge me, that is such a big thing in my view.
Yeah, and sort of the icing on the cake of that, if we can, is to create a cadre, a generation of young leaders who can then do the same thing for the next generation. And
Yes.
wow, what a positive spiral that would be.
Yes. But first, someone has to experience it themselves in
Yeah,
order to pay it forward.
yeah,
And I think that is where you're instrumental in putting this program together and leading it and being part of it.
yeah. No, it's so rewarding. But a lot of it does draw on experience in the engineering world um, of leading large teams, and in the operations side of training, developing teams and individuals. That privilege of being able to sort of just see people grow and be able to take on things, and go away and amongst yourself, sort that out. When you come back, go and brief the boss. And then feeling as if they own that whole thing. And I was very lucky. I had elements of that when I was younger. I worked in the central government in a very flat structure, and my boss was a very young senior, great guy, and he did that for me. He said, right, well, you got a huge amount of responsibility. This is some guidance. When you come back, go and talk to the minister. Okay. Scary at first, but actually, hugely empowering. And so I was very lucky from a number of angles. And I'm really keen to sort of pass that on.
Do you think that that set you up on the path then of what
Yeah,
came later on with your
yeah, I think so.
career?
I think a few influential people who really took the time to encourage, but not be overbearing. Not You give you the space to learn, do and learn, and not overcorrect stuff if it's not quite right in their eyes, and have that view that there are multiple paths. And in the complex world in which we work, there's rarely a single right or wrong answer. I'm sort of afflicted by shades of grey, rather than I'm often jealous of people who have that clarity of that's right and that's wrong. Okay, I'm not quite sure if it's like that, but and therefore working with uncertainty and risk, but working within that, positively within that, rather
Yes.
than necessarily trying to sort of narrow it down to absolute certainty when that's unproductive and impossible. And anyway, is, I think, quite, for me, quite a healthy perspective.
Yeah,
And
there's
I
some.
was very lucky to be given that freedom when I was relatively young, and really keen that young people today are given some are able to benefit from something similar, because they're just as capable. We haven't people say so. It sort of irritates me when people say, "Oh, youth of today." No, they haven't evolved to be any less capable than we were. How could they? They just
Weren't they saying
they
that
just need
about
to be let
us?
out. They just need to be let out.
Like, that's a sentence that we repeat for every generation. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, that's nonsense.
yes.
Um, how could they be? They just need to have the environment in which they can thrive.
Yes. But again, have in within that environment, have at least one person who who sees them
Yeah,
differently, who
takes the
believes.
time, and is not phased. And I guess, well, the most important thing I ever did leading the team was to smile when I walked into the I walked into the office, and not get phased when things go wrong. Fine, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? Not you know,
Not the
get
opposite.
get your,
Yes.
get your leadership face on, and
Yes. I
there
have
might
to
be there'll be
show.
all sorts of oh shit going on in the background in your
Yes.
head. Um,
Yes. Yes.
but leadership
I
face.
so relate to that. Uh my daughter's challenging me in the mornings nowadays, even though we have a rule of what she does in the morning, but she does it like 80%. So, does it like,
Yeah, testing the boundaries. Yeah, that's good.
yes, and then
Healthy.
she's a little bit like, okay, well, what is she gonna do? How am I gonna respond? So I so relate to that smile on the face. I come out and like, oh, you almost got it today. Let's,
Yeah.
finish it up. Versus,
I'm gonna beat you on positivity. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. I'm not gonna let you
You're not gonna get me down.
ruin my day and start it bad. We're gonna start it together. But that's such a mindset shift. I know from my personal experience, it's very intentional because my response is, oh no, she did something bad and I wanna call her, and
Yeah.
emotions come up, and I spiral myself before I even see her in this negativity. And it's the stopping myself saying, no, 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 that is not what I choose. And we all have a choice. So no, I
Yeah.
choose the positiveness, and I can, as you said, I can kiss her all over with positivity, and still get what I want is to for her to do what we agreed that she would do. Uh
Yeah, just be careful what you wish for, because if you develop your children to be too adventurous, they disappear off to the other side of the world. It's your fault. It's your fault. Okay, fun.
Yes, yes, I hear you that too. And then I look at my life and I disappeared for my parents. So sometimes my husband has to kind of put me in check of, well, you went across the whole globe. So if our kid's gonna go and disappear, then they're
Following a good example.
in a way following. So you got the privilege to do it, so don't limit my kids to do it.
Absolutely.
But more be ready, and you said that support is so important. It's no matter where
Yeah. Yeah.
someone ends up, um is knowing that they always have a supporter back home or back somewhere where you
Yeah.
are. And just that creates that mindset of, I have a safety net that I can always reach into and reach out to.
Yeah, and and not abusing it, not sort of over
No.
relying on it, and so I think you tune your response to not necessarily dive in as soon as something goes wrong, but just remind them that you're there.
Yes, yes, again,
If
just
if it becomes impossible,
yes,
okay,
yeah, keeping it that healthy relationship where we don't depend on each other, but we are both independent and more interdependent in that
yeah, and it works
conversation.
both ways. You're right, absolutely. So,
Well, David, as we're getting to the end of the podcast, I I want to give you the mic back to close us out. What last thoughts would you like to leave us with today?
I'd probably use my one, which was sort of walking around with a smile on your face. I suppose I am I am a diehard optimist, and I always see the best in people. But I wouldn't have it any other way. So there's there's something positive in everybody, and work with it, and you'll see amazing things.
Yes, give people a chance. See them differently than others see them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, on that note, thank you very much for being here,
Thank you. Lovely to
being my
speak to you.
guest today, and spending this time with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Evening here.